Okay, this is an important announcement. It's not getting any press. No one's really talking about it, but there's some software that Microsoft produced quite a few years ago that is now getting ready to become extinct. In other words, it's no longer going to receive support from Microsoft. Normally, why would you care about that, right? Why does anyone care if software is no longer supported? If it works, you just keep using it, right? Well, times have changed. Your insurance broker will not allow you to have software that's no longer receiving updates and security patches for your operating system, for just about anything on your network. That's pretty much global. We've not yet seen an insurance broker that's willing to tolerate that. And I don't blame them, because software that's not being patched, it's not supported, it's not receiving updates, has known vulnerabilities that are published, and therefore attackers will go after that software. Well, the software in question is called Server 2012 or Server 2012 R2, or Release Candidate 2. Microsoft released that server operating system a long time ago. It's been deployed widely all over the world. Well, that software is going to be end of life, end of support. Microsoft will no longer release patches or updates for that as free for the operating system as of October 10th, 2023. So you have about a year to get all of your servers that are running that operating system onto a newer operating system. So there are several operating systems out there. There's 2012, then there was 2016, which is going to be obsolete in about 5 years. Server 2019 is what's being used right now, and that's obsolete in about 7 years. So if you were upgrading today, you'd be probably upgrading to Server 2019, as long as the software you run on that operating system is supported on Server 2019. And Server 2019 has been out long enough for that's probably going to be likely. All right, so back to the issue. Server 2012 R2, obsolete in about a year. So what does that mean? It means you got a year to plan, prep? No. What that means is you are probably already a little behind the 8 ball. I know we've got some clients that we've really not been good about getting them up to the latest server operating systems in a timely manner. With COVID, that kind of put us behind. We weren't really pushing things. Everyone was scared about finances. Well, now we've got to get this going, and we don't have a lot of time to do it in. Why do I say that? A year seems like a lot of time. 12 months? Well, the first thing you got to deal with is if you're doing an operating system upgrade, well, it's probably time to go ahead and update your hardware as well. So the first thing you're probably going to want to do is build a new server. Or get a new hardware, a new physical hardware. So let me explain something. There's server operating systems and there's server hardware. The hardware might be a server that runs solid state drives. Think of it like your laptop is hardware and Windows 10 is the operating system. On a server, you have server hardware, and the operating system is called Microsoft Server 2019 Standard Data Center Enterprise, whatever version it is you run. Okay, so you probably want to go ahead and upgrade your hardware at the same time and combine those, because the last thing you want to do is try to install a newer operating system and on old hardware and then have to replace all that anyway. So do it all at once. All right, so now you're going to buy a new server, you're going to have new hardware, you've got new operating systems, and the cost of that is the hardware that you buy, and then the other cost is the operating system. And then there's a third cost, and this actually could be some other cost, but let's talk about the third cost, which is client access licenses. Microsoft doesn't just sell you an operating system and say, hey, you own this now, it's yours, do whatever you want with it. What they do is they sell you an operating system that may cost, let's call it $1,000 to buy Server 2019 Standard. And then they say, well, how many people are going to connect to it? And you say, well, I'm going to have 10 people connecting to it, or 100 people, whatever it might be. Well, there's a cost to buy a license to connect to that operating system, and they're non-transferable from older versions to newer versions of operating systems. You have to have the, it's called a client access license. You have to have the properly dated client access license for the server operating system you're using. So in this case, if you're going with Server 2019, you need a Server 2019 client access license. You can always go with you can buy a Server 2019 client access license. It can be used on like a Server 2016 server, but you can't have a Server 2016 client access license and it is applicable to a Server 2019 server. Yeah, confused yet? Yeah, it's a little confusing if you don't work in this field. All right. So you want to upgrade your hardware, you're going to upgrade your server operating systems, you got a year to do it. First problem you got, chip shortage. If there's a chip shortage, you can't find computers easily, you can't find servers, you only have so much time to get this done, you got a year. So let's say it takes you 3 months to get the exact server you want in. And then hopefully it doesn't get canceled or you have problems with it. So you get your server in, you've ordered it. Now you've got to coordinate with either your in-house IT staff, where you're going to have to bring in a third party to get that server installed, or maybe you went through a third party to get that done. Now they've got to match their schedule up. Well, just know every third party or even your in-house team may be swamped because everyone in the world is going to be running like crazy to get all their servers upgraded in the next year. Servers are going to become scarce very soon, more than likely, because everyone's going to try to be doing upgrades that has Server 2012 in production. So that's your first concern. The second concern is just coordination. When you upgrade a server and you're doing the hardware is the easy part. You buy the server, maybe it takes 3 months to get it in. Great, you've got the server, it's in the rack. You've got your IT company or your in-house IT staff, they've got it updated, they've loaded the server operating system on it, it's good to go. Well, now what you have to do is you need to coordinate with all those third parties. Because in this world, we tend to use virtual machines. So most of your virtual machines are running probably Server 2012 as well. So now you've got to coordinate with your ERP, your line of business application vendors to get them to reinstall all their software, migrate your data from the older server operating system to the new one. And that's usually a big process. It takes, a lot of time. You might have some downtime coordination with your team and so on. Well, they're also going to be getting slammed by everyone wanting them to do that in the next year. All right. So that's another big part of the problem. All right. So my point in saying that is, let's get it going. You guys need to get on the stick. You need to get all this stuff ordered, get everything started, and we need to do it today. Another piece of this is, let me recap. So the three main pieces of a server upgrade is the server hardware, the server operating system, which is software, just like Windows 10 is a software operating system. And then the third piece is your client access licenses, which you have to have for every employee. So a server can be any price, anywhere from about $3,000 to $4,000 up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Small business typically won't spend more than $5,000 on a basic server. The next thing is the operating system, which is about $1,000. I'm rounding up. And then the client access licenses are $50, and again, I'm rounding up per user. And that's a one-time buy. The operating system is a one-time. The client access license is a one-time. You do not have to buy those every year, have a subscription. But 7 years from now, when Server 2019 is end of life, you'll do this whole process over again. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm not touching on every possible way this can be done. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a Server 2019 data center version, which doesn't require client access licenses. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I'm just going off of what most small businesses do. Okay, so next thing we need to talk about is SQL Server. A lot of people don't really understand what that is. You maybe heard it or you bought it or you know it's in use or whatever. So SQL Server is a database engine. And they use the word server in there because it serves up data. But the truth is it's not hardware. It is software, but it's not an operating system. So although Microsoft, say Windows 10 is an operating system, SQL Server is not an operating system. It is a database system. So it's installed on your Server 2012 operating system, which resides on your server hardware. All right, confused yet? Hopefully you're not. Okay, so you have to have that software, and that software also expires and has to be replaced. So even if you migrate your ERP system, your medical record system, so on to a Server 2019, on the new hardware on a Server 2019 operating system, and now you've got to look at the SQL database software. Well, is it up to date? I've got some dates here. So SQL Server 2008 or R2, Release Candidate 2, Service Pack 3 was end of life in 2019. If you're on that, you're already behind. Your software is obsolete. You need to get it replaced. SQL Server 2012, Service Pack 4, which is the last service pack they released, was end of life July 12th of 2022. So it's past due as well. SQL Server 2014, Service Pack 3, which is the last service pack they had, will be obsolete July 9th, 2024. So you got about 2 years. And if you were installing the brand new SQL Server 2019, you have until January 8, 2030, so about 8 years. So why do I tell you that? Because if you're doing an upgrade today, your server operating system, if you go to Server 2019 and you installed it today, you have about 7 years before you're going to have to replace that operating system, okay? Your hardware itself needs to replace about every 5 years. That's kind of the industry expected lifespan of a server that you would want to extend it out. So hardware is going every 5 years, software is going every 7 years, and then your SQL database will go every 8 years. Why don't those line up? Because the world's not fair. I don't have a better answer for that. But with virtualization now, you can actually get new hardware, move your servers, virtual servers, and all the software on them over to new hardware, which buys you some time to plan and do the upgrades. So you may do a hardware upgrade today, but your software may have a few more years before it expires, and then you coordinate and schedule out the upgrades of that at a later date. So you got some flexibility oftentimes. Not always, but oftentimes. All right. So again, the chip shortage is going to slow things down. Coordinating with third-party vendors is going to slow things down. Just issues that come up. COVID, hit, and nothing was getting done during COVID, right? So let's say we have another wave of COVID. No one's available. Everything's even more shortage than there was before. The economy's changing. You got about a year to get this done typically. So, or for Server 2012 operating system. And then, like I said, just coordination with third parties like ERP, your managed service provider, whoever it is, or even your in-house coordination with vacation and everything else going on. All right. I hope that was helpful. It was a lot of information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We will be reaching out to all of our clients over the next week or so to coordinate a sit down to discuss about moving them onto the latest operating systems for anyone that is on an older operating system or on server hardware that is older than 5 years or getting close to be older than 5 years. We're going to try to match those things up. And so you need to be planning for it. And the sooner you get started, the sooner you get your hardware ordered and your software, the better off you're going to be. You really do not want to have an obsolete operating system in production. Again, your insurance brokers are not going to allow that on your cyber liability policy these days. More than likely, if you signed up for a cyber liability policy, you had to attest that you do not have obsolete operating systems or hardware in your network and so on. So the other thing is regulation. If you're a healthcare provider, HIPAA doesn't allow for obsolete operating systems. And when I say obsolete, I mean operating systems that are not being patched for known vulnerabilities. You cannot run by regulation, you cannot run a software with a known vulnerability on your network if you're a healthcare provider. So that's all I've got. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Brian Largent. Our office number is 918-270-6600. I'm always happy to answer any questions you might have. So have a great rest of your week.